economics. The people want real change.
Well, whether they do or they don't, the establishment politics is pretty experienced and knows what it's doing most of the time, leaving Hillary trailing behind but not down.
We're going to fight for every vote in every state. We're going to fight for real solutions that make a real difference in people's lives.
Well, Beth Gardner, US journalist based in the UK, followed proceedings last night, and she joins us now. Hi, Beth.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good to talk to you. Let's start from Hillary and go from there. When she's down, she's at her best, really, isn't she? She gave a great speech.
Yeah, I mean, that has been true. It was the case for her in 2008 as well, when Obama started beating her in some of the early primaries and caucus states, was when she really rallied. So I guess her supporters are going to be hoping that the two tough votes she's had so far in Iowa and New Hampshire are going to sort of, energize her a little bit. She should be on slightly friendlier territory in some of the states to come. Next up is South Carolina and Nevada, and then a bunch of southern states where there's a big percentage of African-American voters who historically have been very supportive of the Clintons. But no doubt it was a tough night for her, 22-point loss, to a candidate who you have to remember was really seen only a few months ago as being a real fringe long shot. New Hampshire is a state where the Clintons have a long history. It brought Bill Clinton back from the brink in 1992, and it helped Hillary get back on her feet in 2008 when she lost earlier to Obama in Iowa.
And you
to be repudiated by New Hampshire voters like this is very painful.
Well, you talked there about the African-American vote and the support she might get there, but I noticed an awful lot of black faces behind Bernie Sanders when he was giving his speech.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, part of the reason why New Hampshire and Iowa, the two states that have voted so far, have been pretty friendly to him, have been that they are among the whitest states. And his support really has been sort of among young voters, but also among white, sort of liberal lefty types. Hillary has generally been strong with the minority voters. And that's why, she's hoping for better results in the votes to come. But Sanders is certainly aware of that, and he's going to be trying to make a play for, some of those minority votes as well. And that's why I think you've been hearing him talk about more overtly some of these race issues recently.
And just before I come on to Donald Trump and the Republican campaign, when it comes to the Democrats now, Hillary is not going to, well, we know she's not going to take this sitting down, is she? She's going to come back fighting. She said it herself. What do you think that will look like?
Well, the first you've been hearing is talk of a staff shakeup, possibly, some new faces in campaign headquarters in Brooklyn. But I think also what we've started to see and what you may see more is both Clintons really going into an attack mode. Bill Clinton the other day really unloaded on Sanders, some very, very harsh words he had for him. I'm not sure that's working so well. It felt a little bit tone deaf. Sanders is pretty popular even among those who are not necessarily voting for him.
It didn't work for Christie, did it, when he laid into one of his opponents?
Well, it was been sort of described as a murder-suicide. It worked in the sense that it really deflated Marco Rubio, but Christie didn't really do himself any favors with that either. But certainly going forward, I mean, I think it's just going to get uglier and uglier because these are hard-fought races now on both sides of the aisle.
Now, Donald Trump, I mean, wow, 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 says the man, and so do the rest of us, I think.
Yeah, well, he's back. He was chastised a little bit last week in Iowa when he underperformed his polls. But this time in New Hampshire, he equaled his polls. He's in the 30-something %. And I think probably his biggest strength is that the establishment in the party is really having trouble settling on who is going to be the not Trump. In addition to the surprising levels of support for Trump, he's benefited from the fact that the establishment has been divided between basically four candidates, maybe going to go down to three now if Chris Christie, the governor of New Jersey, drops out. Last week it seemed to be Rubio emerging as the horse that the establishment was going to put their money on. Today, John Kasich, the governor of Iowa, looks good, but he's certainly going to struggle in some of the southern states coming up because he's not as far to the right. So as long as the establishment remains divided, obviously Jeb Bush is the other candidate in that category. As long as that group remains divided and can't settle on who their candidate is going to be, it gives Trump more time to rack up delegates, and he's going to become harder to stop.
Yeah, there's just so many of them on the Republican side, isn't there? Beth, thank you very much indeed. Beth Gardner, US journalist based in the UK. I'm sure we'll talk to Beth again. Many thanks to her. Let's carry on this conversation about the two police officers, or one community support officer and a police officer, both now former officers, having been jailed because a man who they just failed